Episode 6 contains discussions surrounding bullying. Viewer discretion advised. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Sisters Squared. I'm Pamela, and I am so grateful that you are here with me today. This episode is a special one because we're talking about something that sits right at the heart of every community: connection, support, and belonging. However, along with that, we're going to touch a little bit on some bullying, which happens and can show up in so many different ways with Down syndrome, children, people, adults, and neurodivergence. And today I'm going to be joined with Nicole and Jason. Jason's from the Hub, and Nicole you met earlier. She has a son with autism. The Hub is an incredible space built for real people, real stories, and real life needs. But before I do go into that and you meet Jason and Nicole, I want to share a little bit about why this podcast means so much to me personally. This was created in honor of my sister Christine. She is someone who experiences the world with a different set of abilities, and although she doesn't use spoken language, she communicates in ways that are powerful and full of heart. I've always felt a deep responsibility to speak for her, but to make sure that the world sees her humanity, her strength, and her beauty in the same way that I do. But there's another layer to this story too, one that is not talked about very often, and one that I would like to talk about. So growing up as a sibling who was expected to be fine and strong, this can shape you in quiet, invisible ways. When someone else's needs naturally take more space, you can lose pieces of yourself without even noticing. And that's what happened to me. Over the years, I find myself living in ways that weren't allowed or aligned with who I truly am or was. Choices, patterns, habits, they weren't authentic to me. They pulled me away from my center, from my peace, and eventually it took a toll on my emotional and mental well-being. A slow unraveling is not kind. Losing yourself. Finding courage and honesty to come back from that is quite therapeutic. That's why this podcast matters so much to me. I want to be a voice for my sister, yes, but I also want to be a voice for anyone who has ever lived in someone else's shadow. Anyone who has ever loved deeply but felt unseen. Anyone who has carried responsibilities that shape them in ways they're still trying to understand. And that brings us to today's conversation about the Hub, because places like the Hub are exactly what so many individuals and families need. They are safe places where people can come as they are without fear of being judged or dismissed. They're community building spaces where relationships form, confidence grows, and people finally feel like they belong. When I talk with Jason today, you'll hear the heart behind the work. You'll hear what it truly means to create a place where everyone has room to breathe, room to explore, and room to be themselves. The Hub isn't just a program, it is a lifeline. It's a place where compassion leads to connection, and that follows. And in so many ways, this mirrors my own journey, because healing happens in community and with community. Belonging happens when people see the real you, and purpose happens when you finally understand that your voice and your story matter. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Nicole and Jason. Well, welcome back, everyone. We just took a little break and we invited Nicole back to our episode. We're going to talk a little bit today about bullying. It is a very real thing for normal children and adults, but for the neurodivergent, it is even more significant. So we're going to share a few stories and talk a little bit about the dynamics of that. Who would like to start? All right, Nicole, she's itching to start.
So bullying is a real thing, and I don't think it matters where you go in society, obviously, whether you're neurodivergent or not. But as a parent with a neurodivergent child, it really, really hit home. And I'm not going to name what church it was, but we decided, because I grew up in a church, and I've had my children, all of my children, go through different churches to try and see what fit for them. Because I didn't want to. Well, I didn't want to say, okay, well, you're going to this church and that's it, right? I wanted them to kind of have that variety, and we kind of settled on one church and was told, again, because I went to the pastor or whoever he was, and the congregation, and said, okay, well, my son is a little bit different. He can have outbursts. He can, he doesn't learn quite the same, and was assured that he would be treated with respect and very well. And after his first time in the kids group away from me, during the service, he came out of there just bawling, and refused to go back because of the way he was treated. There was a group of young adults in the kids section that literally shoved him into a corner and called him stupid and derogatory names and called him the R word. And I was dumbfounded, devastated that this was coming from a church that assured me he would be okay and treated with respect and like normal. And we've seen it in sports as well, unfortunately. In our other episode, we had talked about Jason trying normal sports, and again, it got horrible. He got treated horribly. And I think that's why places like the Hub and Special Olympics, and with these programs that are specifically set up for neurodivergent children, young adults, are so vital, so that they feel that inclusiveness that they don't get in regular society, unfortunately.
And my experience with bullying is the one that stands out the most to me is when my sister was riding the school bus. And of course, you need to go to school. You have to take the school bus like every normal child. And she absolutely hated it after her first experience because, and I'm going to say, some boys threw stones at her, threw rocks at her to not get on the school bus. And so, those kinds of things, now she's scared to go on the bus. So at first, this relationship filled me with blame and anger. And as I dug further, I understood why my parents were living their own nightmare. So in 1971 was the year my life changed in ways I would only learn to understand decades later. Christine Andrea Miller, my sister, was born April 12, 1971. A beautiful baby girl, 10 fingers and 10 toes. And the medical professionals' advice to my mother at that time was to institutionalize her. Raising a child with disabilities was not to be encouraged. I mean, what would people say? My mother refused, and my father was confused. She chose to fight. She battled a system that had no place for families like ours. We carry the burden of uncertainty every single day, never knowing what the future would look like. They lived in survival mode every day of their life, and survival mode does not leave space for tender feelings. My attention, along with my brothers, were not neglected out of cruelty. We were neurotypical. We were normal, and we did not need to be parented. It was our job now to be the parent to my sister. And this is when I no longer was a sister in any sense of my internal world.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. And like I said, places like the Hub, where you offer a safe, inclusive space and are trying to get young adults that are classified as normal in society to interact and interact correctly are so vital to people with that neurodivergence, right? And I mean, I've heard of the hub as a parent. My son has been there with his worker. I have never been there myself. I'm going to ask, how, like, do you have to register? Is there a cost? I mean, obviously, I've heard you say that it was at the YMCA. So is it just show up on?
Yeah, it's just a show up thing. Now that said, it's been a free program since we started it, but we've lost all of our funding, which
Thank
means
you, Alberta
we
government.
have, at this point, even the funding that we scrounged up and got going after switching away from the Alberta government, now we're that funding has now been pulled as well. We had some really good funding with Lifelong Learning Council was in our corner, and they want to be in our corner. However, the scope of what counts for their funding has adjusted just enough that we're no longer on that line anymore, and so they had to unfortunately pull back a lot of their funding this year to put into other programs, which I totally understand. But it's still feeling downhearted a little bit on that because at this moment, as we're recording this, we don't have that funding, and so we have a few months to figure something out. Which one of the possibilities that we're probably going to do is to add a pay thing. So we've been fortunate to be able to do it without having to do that, but we may add something like a $5
drop-in fee for the day or whatever.
Something.
Which would make sense. And I'm sure a lot of these adults and kids would be more than happy
willing to pay that. Yeah.
And I mean, as a parent, I would be very happy to pay something like that for my child to go to a safe space where they can do arts and music and have fun and make those connections and friendships and even romances. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think more people, more parents, more government bodies, community bodies need to know and be aware of these programs and help fund them. I really, really do.
Yeah, and that's, why we're making this podcast, so we can be some strong advocates, because we know that my sister can't advocate for herself, right? So that's where I come in, and my mom comes in,
and people like you,
and people like Jason, and Family Visions, which is a program in Manitoba where my sister lives and a home she lives in. So those programs are so essential and so important. And funding cuts is not fun.
No, I was affected by the funding cuts from the government when Jason was still younger, before he got on AISH. We were through PDD, which is another government funded, and it got cut. I lost all of my funding to have aids in, which, I mean, as a parent, you need that break.
You need a home care provider.
Yes,
almost,
and you need those aids to take your child sometimes just out to do something so that you get breathing space. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my child. I love my son to pieces. I would not have him any other way. And I've been asked that, which I think is a form of bullying too.
I think so too,
Yeah, people always say, well, wouldn't it be better if he was normal?
And again, what is normal?
What? Yeah, what is normal? How dare you ask me that? Right? Like, as if I changed my son. I love him just the way he is. I would not have him any other way.
I've heard that word normal my whole entire life, and I'm sure you have, and you have, and everyone has, and it's like, well, what is that? Who is normal? Show me someone who is normal.
Right?
We're all neurodivergent in some way or another.
Yeah.
Some of us are just more extreme than others. Right?
Yeah. Well, and two, I mean, bullying too, Jason gets it a lot. Unfortunately, because again, I'm going to use that normal word. He looks normal. You look at him and you would never know. And a lot of these adults that use the services that we're talking about don't have a Down syndrome look to them, unfortunately. Because I mean, unfortunately, yes, it's Down syndrome.
It's a very physical significance.
Yeah,
absolutely.
there are very specific traits that make people with Down syndrome identifiable. People with physical disabilities. Again, there's that very visual aspect that makes them look different. Whereas with autism, Asperger's, ADHD, ADD, any of these other ones that fall under that umbrella, unfortunately, they look quite normal. They look like you and I, right? Until you get to spend time with them. And then you start to see the differences. And that's when the bullying starts to happen, right? Like it's just, it's unfortunate. And that's why these programs are so, so important. And yeah, Jason, I mean, if you walked by him on the street, you would never know. You would never know. And he was bullied on the bus. And luckily for us, when he got put into the foundations program through the school board, he got bused with all of the other kids that were in the foundation program. So, I mean, he was very lucky that way.
Yes, however, there was no inclusivity. So there's no everyone around him.
Yeah.
So this is, we need to stop the separation, right? We need to make it all inclusive. And that's kind of what I advocate for.
Yeah.
What kind of pregnancy was it? Was it an
No,
easy
there was
pregnancy?
no problems back then, Pam. I don't think I told you.
No, you didn't tell me what kind of
No,
pregnancy
it was
you
a
had.
normal pregnancy.
Yeah.
Absolutely normal.
And so when you went into the hospital and you had Christine, let's walk through that again because it was quite tragic, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I didn't see my baby for 3 days, and I kept asking to see my baby, and they, each time they'd say, well, maybe tomorrow. And I said, there's something wrong with her. Well, a nurse will be in to talk to you about it. So after 3 days, I finally got to see my baby, and she looked perfectly normal to me. She had 10 fingers, 10 toes. The only thing, she had little slits for eyes. I really didn't know what that meant. I didn't know. And then it was just hush, 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 and more tests on the baby. And then, make a long story short, I was told she had Down syndrome. I did not know what that was. I was advised to put her in an institution. And I just said, absolutely not. I've carried her for 9 months. I'm taking her home, and that was it.
But you went home with no resources from the hospital?
No, I had to do all that on my own. I had to do that on my own. But that time we had a public health nurse would come, and she was, very helpful. And she gave me names of 3 families in Regina that did have, I lived in Regina at the time, that had Down syndrome. And I went to visit each one of them, and one was, I can't remember, it's so long ago. One I think was 5, and then one was 12, but I mean, they all looked like, 12-year-old looked like she was 5. They don't show their age, right? And no, I just managed to raise her by myself. She was a challenge because she was very slow in developing.
Well, and so Jason, we were talking in a previous conversation about how Jason has changed me and my parenting and my life. I actually went back, I used to weld for a living. I'm a ticketed welder. And with Jason's health issues and the concerns that we had with his neurodivergent, and we were always off to different places for appointments and everything. Yeah. I actually left welding and changed my career path. Wow. To better be with Jason and meet his needs. Yeah. I went back to school and went into what they call a occupational physical therapy assistant role. And through that schooling, I was able to get a job where I was Monday to Friday, kind of like that 9 to 5, whereas welding, it was all over the place. I was never home. And yeah, so, I mean, he really did. He changed, they will change your life. Yeah. And usually never for the worse, in my opinion. No. It's always for the better. Yeah. They do. They make you see the world differently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right? And 100%. Typically for the better.
I know my mother said the only thing, not the only thing, but the main thing my sister taught was patience. Yeah. Patience. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And you think you have lots of them, but until you're challenged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Jason, as far as the bullying or, that kind of scenario?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I have much to add.
You probably don't see it as much within your program because
because
everyone knows everyone, basically, right?
Exactly.
And they're all normal in your program.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody's on the same page, on the same team in our program. It's really the odd person within that maybe has had some sort of a struggle with somebody else that, then those are the moments that are just interpersonal challenges.
Yeah.
There's not, seeing bullying within is really very rare.
Yeah.
I hear stories about bullying, but I think so much of it happens when we're younger and then becomes less and less as we get older. And I could be wrong on that. I'm open to being wrong, but that's what I kind of, my perception is that more of the bullying is when we're young. Though there's the types of bullying where it's one-on-one or whatever when we're kids and we're in school. But as we get to being adults, that's when the bullying becomes more of our government programs being more of a bully towards people and their families, as you experienced, right? And your experience as a parent, when suddenly dealing with AISH and dealing with a change of, whether you could have support and stuff. Yeah. I've heard that multiple times from people who I look at and I say, this person clearly needs support.
Yeah, right?
There's no question. Yeah. How is this? Yeah. And it's a single mom, and she's struggling with her own health issues. Yeah. And so she is happy to be able to have somebody who's supportive, to be able to take her son out of the house. And everything is fine till he turns 18. And they say, actually, you don't need that support anymore.
Right. Yeah.
What? I remember getting this call from the PDD office asking, so when he comes to your program, he could come without support, right? And I said, well, but I'm facilitating a program, right? Like if I've got 30 people in the program and I'm on stage or I'm in the front of things and I'm facilitating this thing and he has a seizure or he has whatever go on, obviously if he's there alone, I'm going to jump in and apply first aid as best I can, but that's not how this should work.
No. That's why they have those supports.
Yeah.
Because they are needed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just dumbfounded hearing these questions that I was getting over the phone as this person was trying to lead me to say that this would be just fine. Yeah. And I was so frustrated listening to this and saying, no, but, and I think at one point, because I knew that what was going on with them pulling supports, and this young lad had supports up until he turned 18. And I said, here's the thing. The woman who has been paid as his support, she loves him, right? She would be happy to continue to do stuff. And she probably will continue to do stuff with or without this, which isn't fair to her. Yeah. Because this was her job. Yeah. She's come to love this kid. And now you're saying, because I said, she said that she would continue to do whatever she can to support this family, even at this point, but that's not fair to her. That's not me saying that this is a good idea. Right? This was her job, and she's just in love with this person and isn't going to harm them. She should be paid to continue to do that, not suddenly, so she's a natural support. No, she is not now a natural support. She is. Are you? Right? What are you talking about?
I made the decision. I can't remember.
She was living in Brandon at the time.
How old she was,
but you and Dad.
I was thinking, what is going to happen with this child if something happens to Ralph and I? And that's when I made the decision to put her with this agency. It's Family Visions in Brandon. And so we got her in there, and she adjusted very well. It was harder on me than it was on her, because I was moving her out of my home into this facility. So that was hard on me.
So describe Family Visions. What kind of a program is that? What does it offer for Christine? Yeah, what is the program? How do you I know you found Family Visions, but how did you find Family Visions? Did somebody tell you about that, or?
I joined the organization while I still had Christine at home. I joined the organization, and that's how I got to know them.
Right.
And what they do is they find placement for people that, can't manage their child at home anymore. It's not that I couldn't manage her. I just wanted her to be in a place where she's looked after when we are not able to look after her. But some people have to really give up their child because they're not manageable.
Yeah.
But that wasn't our case. I was thinking ahead to the future, and it's a good decision. She's been happy ever since.
Well, and see, that's the thing. Like, the government doesn't, or any of these programs. I'm not going to rule out finger the government. I mean, I would, but we could. But they don't realize that a lot of these support workers are with these adults from a very young age, and they're with them for years. They watch them grow up. Yeah. They become part of the family, and to pull that away is devastating. Jason, when he turned 18, we lost our support, and I was told it's because he's too high functioning. Okay, so example, Jason is not able to handle money. He can't read properly. He can't tell time unless it's a digital clock. When he's home alone, because I was told that he's fine, he can be left home alone, I have to lock all of my doors, my cupboards, my fridge, my freezer. But I was told that he's fine. We don't need support. So you tell me how, he is high functioning is what I've been told. You tell me how somebody who has a child that is less functioning than Jason, say your sister, is supposed to live their life without those supports. It's a form of bullying from our government. And the people that pull all of that funding from us. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it is, to these families and to families like my own, it's devastating to lose that support and that funding.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
we've had heavy really fast.
Yeah,
that got deep.
That got deep. I'm sure we could go deeper and on and on and on. And do you have anything to wrap up? Anything?
Again, advocation. Yeah. Advocation for inclusion is so, so important. And getting rid of terms like retard, disability, handicap,
yes. Normal.
Right?
What else?
These people are all, I like handy-capable, right? I think each and every one of them, whether they're doing music, art, karaoke, dancing, sports, working in a normal job, they are capable. Give them the time.
A chance, yeah.
Give them a chance. And be patient. I think that's huge. Society needs to stop, slow down, take a breath, look at these people and go, yes, you can.
Yeah. It's a new AI term, advocate for inclusion.
Nice.
Right?
That is awesome. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And I kind of agree that I think that we should be focusing more on how we can be supportive. So whether it's, if you've got a business and you look and you say, oh, well, this person, is going to, I'm going to just say, this person's output might be a quarter of this person's output, but I can't pay them a quarter of that because that's less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
What am I going to do here? I can't do that. But find ways to be inclusive. And you don't have to make your entire workforce inclusive, but find ways to create those inclusion opportunities.
So on that, and it's still there, the government, if you hire neurodivergent or disabled people, and I hate to say that, but we're talking physical disability here, the government has programs that will help pay their wages that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
And if this got out, if more people knew, can you imagine what a wonderful world this would be? Honestly. Yeah. It's a lot of it is just not knowing about resources, funding, about what's out there for everybody to access.
Yeah. The amount of self confidence that I see. I've got one lady who works, who is a volunteer at the hub. She is there from the time we start until I wrap up, and usually I drive her home at the end of the day. But she comes in and she helps me out with setting up and tearing down all of our sound system stuff, and she helps out with all these different things. And over the few years that we've had this new program, you know, at the beginning, it took a little while for her to kind of learn the setup and things, but she's gotten more and more and more skilled and confident. And now, you know, I'm pretty confident to just let her just do her thing. And the confidence that she gets from that, right? She tells people, I work at the hub. She tells people how proud she is of what she does. And that, we need that. I remember at one point during the COVID time when I wasn't working and I was kind of feeling down, and I didn't even realize that I was feeling down. And a friend called me up and said, hey, you know, I'm getting a new piece of equipment in my shop this week. Would you come in and just like help me kind of move some things around and help prep it? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll come down. And you know what? I swept the floor. I swept the floor. This is not a difficult task. And I felt myself change sweeping the floor. This is not a hard job, but just that little bit, I felt like, oh, I'm actually doing something useful right now. And I felt stronger. And I'm a pretty confident person. And I didn't realize how much of an impact that made on me.
So if it made that much of an impact on you,
Right.
can you imagine the impact it makes on our neurodivergent community? To feel that inclusion, to feel part of society, to feel like they're making an impact. Right? That's,
And we're starting to see more and more in the media too, in entertainment with actors
and models
and singers, right? Which is good.
I believe we had our nationals down in Calgary last year, and the song that they played
was Cody's,
and he is a neurodivergent singer.
And he's got the most amazing song out, right?
And you used it in your
it's called Change. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but you need to listen to it.
It is
Change
beautiful.
by Cody Lee. He was on America's Got Talent. Is that what it was?
I think so, yeah.
And he won. Simon Cowell pushed him through.
Nice.
So I think if I had anything to say, it would be advocate, inclusivity, and community. That's what we need.
Very good. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap that up for today. The bracelet you have on, what's it for?
What is it, Pam?
I gave it to you in memory of Dad because he passed of Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah, you got it.
And you have one, and I have one, and Mom has one.
That's cool.
Right? What did you do at the wedding last night? Who got married? Who got married yesterday?
Lizzie.
Lindsay and who?
Brandon.
Brandon. And?
That's it.
That's it. Did you do some dancing?
Oh yeah, dancing.
Oh
too.
yeah, some dancing too.
And so, okay, that's it.
You were dancing like Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
What did they have for dinner? What did you eat at the wedding?
Pizza.
Pizza. Yeah. Right?
Pizza and eat a pop.
Pizza and pop.